Hi, I got questioned by the police and almost went to jail because I delivered pizza to criminals. I never thought being a delivery driver was dangerous, but I never imagined it would almost land me in jail. We got a pretty suspicious pizza delivery order late at night. Our dining room was packed. Apparently, everyone was desperate to sit at the tables again when the lockdown ended. The guys behind the counter couldn't cope, so I picked up the phone. I hadn't even finished our standard greeting when the guy immediately said, "Yo, it's Mac. I'm ordering pizza." I'm not a fan of small talk either, so I replied, "Well, Mac, good for you. Are you picking it up or getting delivery?" Just the standard questions. He answered the first one, but seemed indecisive or confused. He argued with some other guy in the background for a couple of seconds, then picked up the phone again and placed his order as if nothing had happened. Oh well. I took the order and drove off. It was a regular large pizza, no toppings, no extras. They were going to pay in cash. I arrive and see a creepy, dilapidated, almost empty residential complex. Although mostly poor students lived in this area now, so I didn't worry too much. I approached the door, knocked, and it opened slightly. For such an area, it seemed strange to me that the door was unlocked, but it was none of my business. I shouted, "Hey, pizza's here!" No answer. I shouted a little louder, "Your pizza is here!" Sudden lie, I heard an anxious voice from inside. "Shh, just come in." Haha, no way, I get that offer surprisingly often. From suspicious students in dorms to suburban moms who ask me to bring the pizza right to the table because they're busy. It even happened during the pandemic. But our pizzeria has a long-standing and very sensible policy. Entering the house for any reason is strictly prohibited. So I replied, "That won't work, but I can leave it at the door if you don't want to come out." "But I need payment first." There was silence, then I heard some shuffling. Then the door slammed shut and locked, and the man behind the door said, "What do you mean, payment in advance?" That's not what we agreed on. I stood there thinking, this isn't the first time in his life that this man ordered pizza, because payment in advance is a given, right? But I wasn't going to argue or make myself look like a jerk, so I just said, "Yes, that's our policy. Payment first." And he exploded, shouting, "That's not what Mario and I agreed on." At that point, I decided he was probably trying to rip me off, because there's no one named Mario at our pizzeria, and I took the order so I know exactly what was going on. I decided that if he wasn't going to pay, I had already made a reasonable attempt to deliver the order, and could leave without any worries. And just then, another guy showed up, and now I realize he didn't even have a box. He walked up to the door with complete confidence, knocked on it with his fist like a punching bag, and muttered, "Pizza here." I didn't understand whether this guy had ordered two identical pizzas from different places, or whether ours had taken so long that he decided we weren't coming and called another pizzeria, or whether I had gone to the wrong place altogether. But it looked so strange that I decided to just leave, especially since the second pizza delivery guy as staring at me very intently with such a malicious expression that I could never have managed to portray, even to defend the honor of our establishment's pizza. He said something like, "How can I help you?" or "Wrong apartment." But I was already on my way out and didn't pay attention. I returned to the pizzeria and told the boss everything. We laughed and speculated about what could have prompted the man to order two pizzas at once, and I didn't even think about it anymore. A few weeks later, I was at work when two cops came into the restaurant, not in uniform, but with badges. They asked if I had been in a certain residential complex on a certain day, and I said, "It was a long time ago. I don't remember where I was." Then they said, "Well, in that case, you won't mind coming with us and telling us what you remember." And I said, "Yes, actually, I will." They said, "Well, that's okay. Let's talk anyway. Maybe something will come to mind that you think is unimportant, but turns out to be useful." And so on. They tried to persuade me, in short. I said I was on shift, but I could come in next week, for example. But they were very insistent, which should have alerted me even then. They said, "It's very urgent. We'd like you to come right now. We'll explain everything to your boss. There won't be any problems. You'll be a big help to us." The fact that they didn't want to talk to me at work should have been the first warning sign. But I knew I hadn't done anything illegal, so I didn't even think I could be in trouble or that I had anything to worry about. Moreover, when I arrived at the police station, everyone was extremely friendly, as if I was really doing them a favor. They didn't throw me in a cell or try to intimidate me. They took me to a pleasant air-conditioned meeting room, sat me down in a comfortable chair, offered me a drink, and just chatted with me for 20 to 30 minutes. I still don't remember what it was all about. I think they even offered to order food if I remember correctly. I refused even the small things because I was in a hurry to get back to work. I didn't want my colleagues to start suspecting anything. I played along and remained polite because they had gotten the go-ahead from their boss for me to stay with them as long as necessary. But in my head, I was thinking, didn't you say it was urgent, that there weren't enough people at work, and here we are sitting around discussing the student baseball championship? In the end, they moved on, ostensibly cautiously, but in reality quite clumsily, to the reason they had brought me there. They asked if I had delivered pizza to that residential complex. Of course, in the time that had passed since they arrived at the pizzeria, I had gone over everything in my head, so I said yes, I had. I wasn't sure if it was on the exact day they were talking about, but it was around that time. I thought they would start asking about the delivery itself, but I decided not to rush things, as spilling everything at once would look suspicious. Besides, I didn't want to accidentally say too much and get stuck there even longer. But instead of the questions I expected, they asked how long I had known the guys I delivered to. Confused, I replied that I didn't know them. It was clear that my answer disappointed them, but it was the truth, and they quickly pulled themselves together there. There were two detectives, the same ones who had come after me at the pizzeria. One kept insisting on the facts as they saw them, while the other tried to turn the case in my favor. And then the second one said, "Okay, I understand that you're not all best friends there, but you at least knew them as customers, right?" I didn't understand what he meant by knew them as customers because I didn't know any of them at all, so I said no. They changed the subject and asked how long the delivery had been planned. I explained that everything is ordered and delivered on the same day unless it's 4 or more pizzas. And I didn't remember exactly when the call came in, but according to the restaurant's rules, delivery should take no more than an hour. Probably less considering how close the address was to the pizzeria. They kept me going back and forth much longer than I expected. They asked questions as if I knew something, but I was completely baffled and gave them frankly disappointing answers, constantly reminding them that I knew nothing. In the end, they clearly got angry and basically said, "Stop lying to us, man. Tell us the truth. Your friends ratted you out. It's over." And I'm sitting there thinking, do I have friends? Well, seriously, I was stunned by this with Minoton because I didn't understand what they were talking about at all. And I told them that, and they were both like, "Come on, man. You're just embarrassing yourself. Just admit it, and it'll be easier." One tried to assure me that if I told them what I knew, they could help, and the other insisted that I was too stupid to seize my last chance. Well, I wasn't going to sit there and listen to them talk to me like that, so I got up to leave. Before I knew what was happening, they started reading me my Miranda rights. It was like a scene from a horror movie unfolding in slow motion right before my eyes. I immediately stopped keeping up the act. I want to go back to work, but out of politeness, I'll stay calm with you and break down. I insist D very strongly, trying not to look inadequate, as I hoped, that I had no idea what they were talking G about, as I had been saying all along. They weren't going to listen and kept repeating themselves. The video doesn't lie, man. Do you want to see the recording before you tell more lies? The jury will eat it up. The jury? I almost shit myself. I rarely even turn right at a red light. And also, you mean you had the video the whole time while you were questioning me, forcing me to remember what happened, and you could have just shown me the recording? What the hell? That's when I realized I was in deep shit. 1,000 thoughts were spinning in my head, and I was completely overwhelmed and scared. In the end, I said what I should have said at the very beginning. Admittedly, I was too uncertain because I was trying to play innocent. I didn't want to look guilty or make things worse than they already were. I was like, maybe I should talk to a lawyer? And they were like, you want to talk to a lawyer? Did you do something that requires legal assistance? And the second one added, if you want a lawyer, we'll call one, but I'll tell you right now, it looks very bad for you. And I shouldn't have believed him. As my father explained to me later, you never talk to the police yourself, only your lawyer does. Well, at the time I thought, yeah, asking for a lawyer probably makes it look like I'm guilty. Damn. Then they showed me enhanced video footage and timestamps and said something, but my head was already spinning. But one thing in particular caught my attention. They said something they had already repeated a couple of times, but only then did it finally sink in. They claimed, your friends thought it would be easy money, that it would be cool to order pizza instead of telling you directly. By this point, it was clear that they thought I had brought a large amount of dirty money into this apartment, and that we wouldn't suspect anything and wouldn't investigate. I know you're a good guy, you didn't understand what you were getting yourself into, but if you were not honest, we can't help you. I've told them a bunch of times about the other guy who supposedly came to deliver pizza. I even showed them a video of him. Unfortunately, the cameras had no sound, so they couldn't hear me arguing with the people in the apartment over those measly few bucks. And more importantly, they couldn't hear the other guy say, pizza. And since that guy didn't have a pizza box and I did, they didn't believe that I wasn't involved in the operation. In short, judging by what they dug up from the real criminals, the people in that apartment were supposed to take the money. Those sitting in the apartment were told something like, a pizza will be delivered to you in the afternoon, so that no one would say anything unnecessary in their correspondence. These stupid bastards didn't understand the instructions and actually ordered a real pizza instead of just waiting for the money to be delivered. I'm pretty sure all the swearing I heard on the phone was from another participant asking something like, are you sure we should order real pizza? Well, what else could they be arguing about? So when I put it all together, all that was left was to prove that my delivery was real. They tried to get confirmation of the order from my boss, but we're a small place. We only keep receipts until the end of the week, and every evening we just sign a piece of paper confirming the amount of tips. These guys didn't get in because they didn't pay. I had no witnesses other than the criminals themselves to confirm my story, and they had no reason to justify me. Otherwise, they would have done so long ago. But then I remembered. Boss, I told him all about that delivery. I begged the cops to talk and reminded them that I followed them straight from the pizzeria, not knowing what was going on yet. So you can be sure he doesn't know the whole story. And indeed, the boss repeated everything exactly as I said and confirmed my version to the police. Our stories matched almost word for word. The cops checked our phone records, but these guys placed the order from a disposable phone, so that didn't help either. I thought the boss would be enough, but after almost 8 hours at the station, they said they were going to detain me while they checked that I hadn't come with a fake pizza and handed over the money some other way. Or until they found the real delivery guy. They would never have found him because they didn't believe that another guy without a box on the video had brought the money to the door. Hell knows, maybe the money was taped to his body, but the cops were sure it couldn't have been him since he didn't have a bag, a box, or anything else to put the money in. Finally, realizing that this misunderstanding would not resolve itself, I requested make a phone call. I called my father, and he, of course, told me not to say another word, came with a lawyer, and an hour after he arrived, I was released. The next day, I was officially acquitted, and they even apologized somehow. None of this will go into my personal file, of course, but one would still expect them to show at least a little regret for what they put me through. My boss gave me a couple of paid days off when he saw how serious it was. Questioning my boss, checking my phone records, and so on. I think he was just glad that I wasn't a fraudster, a serial killer, or some other criminal, because for a long time, all he was told was that I was involved in the situation, and they needed information. So there you have it. Use your head, don't become a delivery person, and definitely don't make it your career. Comments. The whole reason the cops tried to be so friendly and rubbed it in that we just want to chat, ask a couple of questions, you're not in trouble, was to keep you in a good mood and talkative for as long as possible. And they wanted to ask you questions without a lawyer present. As soon as they officially arrest you, you will immediately become wary, less cooperative, and their hands will be tied during the interrogation. Here's a little fact for those who don't know, and unfortunately, there are too many of them. First, you must unequivocally demand a lawyer. There is no other way to put it. If you leave even the slightest loophole in your wording, the cops in Court S will twist your every word and steamroll your rights. Phrases like, I need to talk to a lawyer, or I think I should talk to a lawyer, are not the same as I want my lawyer. I've seen cases where SICE ops refuse to give someone a lawyer because what they said was ambiguous and not a direct request. There was a case not long ago where a guy said something like, why don't you give me a lawyer, doc? This is slang for dude, buddy, bro. He was denied a lawyer, he sued, and he lost on 2 counts. First, his phrase was a question, not a demand. Second, they completely ignored the colloquial meaning of the word doc and claimed that they decided he asked for a lawyer dog. Yes, a real lawyer dog. They actually claimed that the man wanted to be represented by a puppy in a lawyer's suit. And the court found this to be a reasonable argument for denying him a lawyer, as lawyer dogs do not exist. The second fact is that after you are read your Miranda rights and you request a lawyer, the cops have no right to ask you questions. But they are specially trained in the psychology of interrogation. They cannot ask about the case, but they can make a statement and negotiate among themselves. That is, they will change the format from questions to statements, whether it is true or not. Like with the author who was told that his friends had already turned him in. They can claim that they have video, fingerprints, blood, witness statements, and since they are not formally asking questions, they are not breaking the law. But all this is done to force you to talk, even after you have requested a lawyer. The conclusion is, never talk to the cops alone. If they want to talk, let them do it where you are and in front of other people. If they are so eager that they are ready to arrest you, let them arrest you, but immediately demand a lawyer. Especially if you are sure that you have done nothing wrong. Story number 2. A crazy old man threw a chair at me in a cafe, so I had to call the cops. Phew, hi everyone. I have an awesome story for you from yesterday. Half of my colleagues were stuck at a conference because of a hurricane, so the rest of us had to work non-stop to cover for them. I don't mind working overtime. There's nothing I can do about it, so that's how it is. Yesterday I worked 12 hours. Before that I worked 12 hours 2 days in a row, and I knew I had another 12 hours ahead of me today. The last one, hooray! To be honest, it wasn't that bad, but yes, I'm tired. That's exactly why I got myself into this mess. Before leaving work, I didn't change out of my company shirt, so I was wearing jeans and a tie-dye t-shirt and I wandered into a diner like a zombie to grab a bite to eat. I took my food and sat down in a corner. At some point, I heard a noise, but ignored it. When I got up to throw away the trash, I heard an old man yelling, "There she is! She should be fired!" Oh, something was going on. Of course, being curious, I looked back, and he was really pointing his finger at me with a wildly angry face. I looked back, but there was no one there. Oh, he was definitely yelling at me. The old man started SCR-eming that he had been there yesterday, that the cashier had been rude, and that she, meaning me, had ruined his order. Half asleep and completely confused, I looked at the manager with a, "What the HL?" Look, and he threw me a frightened, apologetic, "I have no idea." The old man continues to yell at me, and the manager says to him, "Sir, I'd be happy to help you figure this out, but this girl doesn't work here. I'll help you find out who was rude to you, but it definitely wasn't her." Well, as always happens in these stories, the old man doesn't listen. No, I know it was her. I wouldn't forget that nasty face. Great, now I'm wide awake and starting to get angry. But apparently they forgot because I don't work here and never have. The old man isn't worth it, so I glance at the manager. "Figure it out yourself," and head for the door. And that asshole throws a chair at me. A chair! He missed, but he clearly tried. The manager grabs him in a bear hug in a split second and drags him to the exit, saying, "That's it, you're out of here. If you come back, I'll call the police. If that girl doesn't report you first for trying to throw a chair at her." The old man yelled something like, "She dodged it! Let me go!" The manager replied with something like, "That doesn't work." or something to that effect. I was still in shock and didn't catch everything. But respect to the manager, he pulled the crazy guy away from me, his real employees, and other customers, including children, in a second. He pushed him out the door, and he was still yelling and slammed the door, holding it shut. He offered me a free meal and said he would be happy to help me file a report. Honestly, if that old man had just left, I might not have done that. But he kept yelling and banging on the door, so we had to call the cops. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left us alone. While we were waiting, the manager mentioned the cameras and sent someone to get the recordings so the cops could see everything. The cops arrived, handcuffed the old man, and started asking what had happened. The old man lied through his teeth, saying that I had thrown the chair and the manager had attacked him. Well, the cameras easily proved otherwise. So now he's in jail with a whole list of charges. One cop took him away, the other stayed to take statements and all that. For fun, they tried to find out which cashier had allegedly served him so badly. But on that day, only guys were working at the cash registers. They didn't find the old 1D man on the video either, and the employees are sure that he never came in at all. As I was leaving, the cop looked at me and innocently asked, "Are you sure you don't work here?" Man, I don't know why, but I just burst out laughing. Edited. Many people noticed that the old man's behavior was similar to Alzheimer's or dementia. But this morning I found a photo of him from the police station, which helped me find information about his other prison terms. The records haven't been updated in the last 20 years, but he has been charged with assault 4 times, trespassing twice, and resisting arrest 6 times. That means he resisted arrest in 7 of his 7 detentions. 6 times. And he has had his driver's license revoked once. In short, this guy is just a jerk. And no, I'm not dating the teacup. He's 20 years old and married. Also, I wouldn't blame the company. They're not at fault. The employees were extremely kind to me, and one of the managers I spoke to even offered to pay for my therapy. I find this absurd, as I am not traumatized and did not suffer any harm. It even turned into a great story to tell others. If necessary, I will testify in court against this old man so that he stays away from normal people for as long as the law allows. I hope that with his past record of charges, he will most likely receive the maximum punishment. Well, that's all. Thank you for listening to all these stories to the end. Check out our previous videos, which you can find here, and be sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already done so. Good luck.